Welcome CSC 103 class. I'm going to review the steps to open, crop, edit, and resize your image and insert it into your discussion post. And this is our class album, at least for this particular section in Google Photos. You're just going to look for your photo. Now I'm going to find mine. Mine happens to be right here. So I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to right click on it once I open the full image and say copy image address. And then I'm going to go to Photopea, which I already have open here, and I'm going to go open from URL, and I'm going to paste. You could do Control V and paste in your URL, which is your image address. That'll open it up online, and I'm going to hit OK. And there's the image of myself, and the first thing I'm going to do is crop it, and I'm going to use the crop tool over here, and I'm just going to draw a box with the crop tool around what I want. And I'm going to move it around. You could go in the middle and move it around. You could resize it in the corner. And when you're okay with it, you could just hit enter. And one other thing you can do, if you go on the arrow tool or the selection tool up here, and you go to edit free transform. Now you don't have to do this, but I'm going to do it because my head's a little crooked. I'm going to go here and just resize my head just a little bit, just straighten it out, and then hit enter. And I was able to do that, so it kind of indicates that we didn't delete all the pixels that are behind there, even though we did crop it, which is nice to know. So we could still move it around and almost recrop it. Even if I wanted to move it up a little, I could. So I have it cropped first before I did any resizing of the pixels. And what I want to do next is just kind of check out the lights and darks of this. And I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Levels. And I'm going to look at the histogram. That's what this thing's called. It's a histogram, and it shows the darks, the lights, and the midtones. And there's a nice representation of pixels here, except there's a little gap here. So if these were grades, a lot of people didn't get high A's. A lot of people did good grades. But that's what it means with the highlights here. There's kind of a drop off here. So that means there's a little room for me to move this over and lighten things up a little. I don't want to go past that kind of high selection there, or that high level of pixels there, but where there's hardly any, I can move it over. Now I don't want to go too far and wash things out, so I'm going to go right here and just kind of brighten things up a little bit, and that's all I need, I think. I don't think my midtones aren't too dark. I don't need to lighten the midtones. It'll make it look too washed out. I could increase contrast a little bit by darkening the darks. That's what happens here. You lighten the lights, you darken the darks, and you can darken or lighten the midtones, or leave them right in the middle. So I'm going to leave them right in the middle because I think they're fine, but I could darken the darks ever so slightly, and the only time you know you need to do that is if you see a gap down here. So I'm going to do that right now, and I just a little bit on this side and a tiny bit on that side, and I'm going to hit OK. So those were my levels. As far as the warm and cool, it's fine. If you have too cool of a picture, you could use photo filter. And one thing I'm going to do, just like I did on the other picture, I'll just try this again, and I'll zoom in to my teeth. This will look kind of weird, but I'll zoom into my teeth here and lighten up my teeth a little bit. And this is just a review from the yellow teeth exercise. I'm going to go over to the lasso tool, and I'll hold down on it then and choose the polygonal lasso, which will make straight lines. And that's the one where I could just go and click here, and I could click, move, click. And on my last video, it was kind of tricky. Ending up on here is kind of tricky with this. So we'll see if I can do a better job of it this time. I'm just going to get right near the end, and I'm right in between. Before I get to the end, I'm going to double click. It seems like I almost have to do it twice, but that worked. So I have my selection of my teeth, and if you remember from last time, I want to cool it and lighten it just a little bit. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Photo Filter, and instead of orange, I'm going to choose blue. And I have to hit OK here first, and then I'll move this out of the way and look at my teeth, and obviously I don't want them that blue. It might be somewhere around maybe 10% or so might work out. And that looks good. They're a little cooler. You could do the preview to see before and after. It just cools them just a little bit. And I'll hit OK. And then if I want to lighten them ever so slightly, Image, Adjustments, Levels. And again, this is just for the teeth because I only have the teeth selected. And I'm going to use the highlights up here and just lighten them just a little. Just enough to brighten up the teeth a little. I don't need to darken any shadows in the teeth, so I'm going to hit OK. And then to deselect, you could just go Select, Deselect. And that's all I need to do with the teeth, so I'm going to zoom out of here so I don't have to see my face so close up. Now the next thing I'm going to do is resize it. Now when I mean resize it, I mean take the pixel size down. So I'm going to go to Image, Image Size, because I don't want an image that's 500 pixels. I don't need it that big to be in a discussion post. So I'm going to take it down to like 150. And don't worry if this doesn't change. If this lock is on here, that means it's going to change when I hit OK. So I'm going to hit OK, and there it is. And I'll zoom in just a little bit so I can see it a little better now. but it's down to more of a realistic size. And if I go to image size, I could see that it's like 150 by 152, and that's good. And I can X out of here. The last thing I'll want to do is probably sharpen it a little. Just because I resized it, it tends to get a little bit blurry because you're taking all those pixels and getting rid of them, and it tends to interpolate some of the pixels, and it gets a little bit blurry. So I'm going to go to Filter and go down to Sharpen, and instead of just going to Sharpen, I'm going to go to Unsharp Mask, and I'll move it out of the way. It looks way too contrasty, so I'm going to put this down, the radius down to 2, and then I'm going to put my amount down to around 50, and then kind of go from there. And I'll turn my preview on and off. And if you just see a little improvement, that's all you want. So 50 is a little improvement. It just sharpens up like the eyes and teeth and some details a little bit more. Depends on what kind of picture you have. If you have a picture of machinery with a lot of little details, you might want to sharpen it more. But my face here, I don't want to sharpen a whole lot. So somewhere between 50 and 100, I might go anywhere from 55 to 60. That's about it. And I'll just click on and off, and it looks a little sharper. And we don't have to do anything with threshold. That means with threshold down to 0, it means it's sharpening everything. So I'll hit OK, and that's it. And then I'm just going to go to File, and I'll say Export As, and I'll use JPEG because most photos are saved as a JPEG unless you have some sort of transparency, but this is a rectangular photo, so this is fine. I'll use JPEG. And I mentioned on the previous video, like 80% is probably fine. It'll have a little bit of compression to it, so I'll hit Save. And now it's just downloaded, and it kept that long URL, but that's okay. Now you could double click on this, or I could just go to downloads because that's where I know it is, or I could just go right to my discussion board and upload it. I could just leave it right there for now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my Warren into my course, and I'm going to go right to discussion board. And I have kind of a mock-up here in student introductions because this is where you would go. You would go to student introductions. And I'll go into student introductions because I had this fake one that I put in here under Steve Smith, so I'll just put this under here now. But then I'll put it under my real one as well. But I'll click, this is what you would do. You might have one here that says you like horses or something else, and you're going to have to edit it if you already did your introduction. And now you want to put in a picture. I'm just going to go and put my cursor here and hit enter or return, and that's where I want to put my picture after all the text, after the words. And I could just click on this thing here, insert image, and this thing goes to the source file, so I'm going to click on that. It'll go find it, and I'm going to hit upload because this is looking for things on Moxie Manager, which is like an intermediate place on my Warren, but I need to actually upload it. Actually, this is the last one because I did another one and my audio didn't work out when I recorded the video, so that's why I'm doing this again. So this is the second one here. It doesn't even matter what the file name is called as long as it's the newest one. And I'll hit open, and then I'll hit insert, and I shouldn't have to change anything here. I could just hit OK, and there it is. And if I want it a little bit smaller, I could resize it. If you ever need to delete it, you could just highlight it and hit delete and put it back, and I'm just going to hit submit, and that's it. And I'm actually going to go back to discussion board here because that's my fake one. I'm going to put it right in my real one, which is instructor introduction. Now, obviously you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to repeat the process again, and I'll just hit edit, and I'll go after my introduction, make a paragraph return, and then again, use this thing, insert image, and I'll go look for it, upload it again. It was the number 2 one there, and insert, and hit OK. There it is. I could resize it just slightly from 150 because it even looks bigger. Even at 150 it looks a little big. So there's my picture in there. Everything's fine. I'll hit submit, and that's it. And that's all you have to do for your discussion post. So it'll give you a chance to work with Photopea a little. You don't have to save this. You could just close it up when you're done.